Welcome to the Errata Sonata podcast. I'm Jeremiah.
I'm Ian.
And I'm Noah.
And today we're going to talk about not your favorite department store, but we're talking about staples in trading card games.
Is Staples, I feel like the answer isn't obvious yet. Staples is an American company, right?
Feel like that's correct.
I'm struck with the sensation that like half the time we mention companies, I'm like, is this going to be something that's only relevant to us? Because I assume it's just like an internationally known brand.
Like Boston Pizza.
Boston Pizza, not a Boston-based business.
I know that Maddie's roommates were like, they were from Markham.
Okay.
And they didn't have Fortinos in Markham.
Fortinos is a grocery store brand.
Yeah, it's like a supermarket. It's the best. It's great.
So if you're on your way to Southern Ontario, come visit Fortinos.
Well, it's a very specific city in Southern Ontario.
We've literally said Hamilton on this like multiple times.
I did not know that Hamilton was the only place where Fortinos
I'm pretty
appeared.
sure Hamilton is like the Fortinos place. Yeah.
Do you have a lot of loyalty towards like supermarkets or grocery stores?
Not really. It's just a place. If I go to a place and I'm like, oh, they have nice food and like the prices are okay, then I'll probably go back.
Nice food, prices okay.
I'll go back. I mean, what are you going to do, dude? Like grocery stores are only going to be so good to you price wise.
They're not great.
Or you know what the best shit is like my parents will go to like different stores for their groceries. They go to
like,
different.
are they shopping around? Or are they
yeah,
just
they'll
like...
go to like 5 different stores because they're like, this is on sale for like 30 cents less, so I can buy 4 of it and get one less than $1 back in savings. And you're like, respect. Honestly, that's a grind.
It's not a grind. This always bugs me. Like if you're gonna drive 10 minutes or like spend 10 minutes of your day to save $1. You value yourself less than minimum wage.
Yeah. How do you think Maddie and I shop? Do you think we do 4 different stores?
I fucking hope that you just work an extra hour.
just go to one shop. Yeah. Well, like, I don't know. It's just more convenient. That's why I go to Fortinos. Anyways.
This coffee is ice cold.
Yeah. Wait,
yeah.
And tastes like vinegar.
is that good or is that bad? Because I was going to say, I only make iced coffee with that machine.
It was enjoyable when it was hot, and now it's...
Oh, well, yeah, fuck, dude.
That's usually what happens for me, though. I feel like even the coffee that I brew, to be fair, I've never brewed something cold.
Cold brew.
Yeah.
That's in the name.
yeah.
Good word association.
All right, so we're not talking about the department, the printing shop, whatever you want to call it.
No, we're talking about staple cards, meaning cards that are just going to hold your deck together. You want to put them in there because they're going to hold everything together and just be very good.
Is that actually where it originates from? I actually didn't know.
I don't know, but I think that's...
You're very eloquent today. It's cold brew, it's Staples, it's you're coming out swinging. It's almost like this isn't the first take of this intro.
Whoa.
I don't think the reason is that it holds your deck together. I think it's just staples are considered a necessity.
Yeah. Every single piece of paper I have, I put a staple in it.
I didn't know.
Exactly.
I don't know if staples went above food and shelter and water.
Well, those are staples.
Water is a staple for living.
You're currently struggling with Digimon because you don't have a particular staple.
Well, yeah. So in card games,
A staple we've mentioned before, by the way. That's a frequent visitor of this podcast. If someone would say a friend of the podcast,
Is it me?
mental trainings.
so the training cards that came out in BT14 are a great example of a staple because like most decks, I'd say, just want to play it because it's good. You have two memory, excavate 2 cards, grab one of them.
You want to know how good they are? They don't work for hybrids.
Yes.
But I still run them in my almost entirely hybrid deck.
I know because they're just good.
That's so funny, especially because like, so you can't use them when you go into a hybrid. And when you go into your level 5 for 1, it's inefficient to use them.
It's not worth it. You usually just want to use them for your mega, but it can find you a card.
Use
That's
it for
the
mega,
biggest...
or you turn your rookie into a champion.
Yeah.
Like directly.
I think about how inefficient it is in the deck, and then I think I could use blue memory boost. And then I realize I could bottom 4 cards just off that blue memory boost easy.
Also, it's like, would you pay 2 memory to look at the top 2 cards of your deck and grab a card? Would you pay 2 memory to do that?
On its own?
On its own.
Probably not, to be honest.
I'd probably pay 1 memory for it.
I could pay 1 memory for it.
1 memory to look at the top 2 and grab a card? Pretty good.
Yeah.
Boring Storm.
Well, Boring Storm is significantly worse. No, getting I think the choice that comes from the training is pretty significant.
That's true, but there's no chance to whiff on Borns.
Wait, can you whiff on a training? It's any blue
You can
card,
whiff. I
right?
mean,
like if you use mental training,
Yeah,
it's
but
any blue
not
card.
all of your decks are mono.
Maybe not if you're if you're not a green stan.
I'm recognizing that there's a lack of privilege coming from your side of the table.
What the fuck is
Because
that?
you guys are talking about like, oh, I'm looking at 2 cards and then getting rid of one. I'm like, dude, that's just draw 2, trash 1. Like I do that every turn.
Yeah, but yours are blind, right? So I was actually
Mine are
explaining,
better.
I was
Yeah.
explaining this concept to Noah, or not concept, but are you familiar with the new pot of? I know you know Pot of Greed. Everybody knows Pot
Yeah,
of Greed.
so
Are you
they
familiar?
released a chain of pots in Yu-Gi-Oh that were like all twists on the idea.
Yes, essentially. Like we looked at Pot of Desires and was like, oh, this is a really, really good card. They tried to make it fair, but they made it still really good. Then they just printed a better one. They didn't try to adjust the card.
Here's the thing. I get where you're going with it. But at the end of the day, the reason why trainings are good is Digimon is a game that has costs, unlike Yu-Gi-Oh, which costs are a very vague thing by comparison. But Digimon's a game with costs. Training's design space is pay now, refund the full amount of your payment later.
Mm-hmm.
So it's net zero, get a good effect.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is like all of these cards, even the pot ofs, they have like a cost, but the benefit is so important that like a lot of decks want to run them.
Yeah.
And like certain strategies are going to favor like different staple cards. But at the end of the day, these staple cards are cards that are being used across the board. And it can really alter the way that people, first of all, build decks. Because building decks, I'd say one of the first things you start with is like your tribe. So whatever, if I'm building a Gallantmon deck, I'm going to look up all the
Does
Gallantmon
Yu-Gi-Oh
cards.
have any deck building restrictions?
There are like decks that will call on other cards that will be restrictive, but there's not like a traditional like Digimon color system.
Yes. You can put any card in your deck, unless it specifically says you can't. And then it's like 40 to 60 cards, and then obviously there's the forbidden limited list, and you have multiples of 3, so you can play up to 3 copies of stuff.
Anyways, so do you like that these cards exist in the game, like in Yu-Gi-Oh, like the pots, or within Digimon these trainings?
I think Yu-Gi-Oh needs staple cards, and I think Yu-Gi-Oh, the way that the reason why I was the first to bring that game up, because every game has them.
Because you've been playing a lot of Master Duel.
Well, I haven't been playing Yu-Gi-Oh recently, but from what I was playing, the biggest thing is that the staple cards formats can warp around staples. You can start playing the game with the knowledge of like these cards are going to be in the format and they're very impactful. And so I just think it's interesting that we're looking at cards that are just generically good that fundamentally affect how you play the game in almost any scenario, based on things like Ash Blossom or like hand traps are staples in Yu-Gi-Oh, right? Ash Blossom and Infinite and Permanent, stuff like that. And you have to consider them when you're playing, even though an opponent might not have them.
Well, here's the important thing. Let's get to brass tacks a little bit. Digimon for a long time, from how I would say it and look at the game, did not have a significant amount of staples. Like we could say like, oh, Red, you know, what was their deletion effect? It was Gaia Force. But at the end of the day, if you didn't want to run a Gaia Force, you didn't have to. It was not like an auto add to a lot of decks. When we got Boost is when the first time I really felt like, okay, well, that's a staple card. A lot of decks were like, you want to increase your consistency? Add some boosts in there. At the time, it was net pay 1 memory. I'm ignoring the time value of memory.
Sure.
But pay 1 memory, search 4 cards, grab a Digimon.
I felt like most memory setters were
Yeah, there's a lot of
That's
memory
true.
setters.
Yeah.
There's a couple option cards as well. HPD is always going to be a staple. Reinforcing was a staple for a while until Yellow started going in some other
Well, it got
directions.
limited.
It's even the limited staples are enough. It's just like, why would you not play Ice Wall? Do you have a reason to not play Ice Wall in
No.
most of your blue decks? Well, there you go. It's a good blue staple.
One element of while Ice Wall is still very good, so much of the annoying part of Ice Wall, and they identified it, the ban post was also successive uses it or even simultaneous uses of 2 copies of it. Lose 4 memory if you attack. I'm not attacking.
Oh yeah.
They printed a new card that does that.
They did?
Yeah, the new Melga X.
Oh yes, yeah.
Your opponent's Digimon gain lose 4 memory when attacking.
I actually have not played against that deck at all. You know, staples in in Yu-Gi-Oh and in Digimon, there's a pretty big disparity between the two, I'd say. But if you look at a game like Dragon Ball Super compared to Digimon, which I know you guys don't have a lot of context for, it was a similar way that they dealt with staples. But some of the staple cards were more staples for the sake of like what type of strategy you're playing. So if you're playing like a control deck, or if you're playing an aggro deck, you'd play different staples. So something like I forget specifically what the name is because fucking Dragon Ball is all the same character, but they just put different words before them. Yeah. So it's like unleashing his spirit, Son Goku or whatever. It's fucking annoying. But there was like a Champa card that was essentially just said like, if your attack connects, it deals 2 damage. You can just give something security plus like out of nowhere. It's very good in aggro decks. So you just put it in aggro decks. It was just
Champa the cat?
Yeah, he's one of the cats. He's from Universe 6.
Adding staples is going to reduce the variability that we see between decks because, you know, there's a certain number of cards are going to appear in every red deck or, you know, every purple deck. Is that a bad thing? It's increasing the consistency of a lot of different deck archetypes. It's kind of putting them on par with each other a little bit more.
I get excited by the idea of staples. I like just generic good stuff packages.
Guy loves X antibody options.
I mean, yeah.
I do as well. I really like the idea of good stuff decks.
Just like running like good cards. Yeah, mid-range stuff where you just like have a lot.
But I will say the way Ian frames it makes it sound very negative.
How so?
The idea that
reducing variability?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a consequence.
I agree with that. But I think like again, this is why I brought up Yu-Gi-Oh so early because the way that they deal with staples is so interesting. Like they have staple hand trap. Majority of the cases it's hand traps, but
yeah,
certain hand traps are good in specific formats, and others are better in others. It's like you'll watch meta recap videos or whatever, and they'll be like, "Oh, Droll is really good this format."
I like the idea of staples that are good but not too good. Then you actually have to think about whether or not you have space for them in the deck. For example, Madoki Betamon, Syakomon. They're great to throw in a deck, but sometimes you have to actually consider if you have room for them. And a lot of times the answer is no.
Yeah, I'm deck building right now for just looking ahead at BT16. And a lot of the times I go, okay, well, deck ideas that are often the less powerful deck ideas, they have to be selfish. I need to like consume more cards in the deck towards the deck's goal, which means that cards like, you know, Psychmon, Gazimon are a lot harder to squeeze into those decks.
That's interesting because more often than not, when I'm developing a deck that isn't as fleshed out, I have that extra space.
Well, I think it's interesting now building decks because rookies have changed, I think, a lot in terms of like you have the SR rookies now.
The SR rookies are common now, if anything. Every set I'm looking at more SR rookies.
Isn't it BT12 where they started printing Searcher rookies with inheritables? And the Searcher rookies can find not only a Digimon in their tribe, also a Tamer card
BT7.
of a specific name. BT7,
the hybrids had it.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, Bokomon.
But yes.
Bokomon, another example.
No,
of a staple,
but not
right?
Boko. The Strabumon.
It's a Searcher with an inheritable.
Yeah, Searchers with inheritables are like they're starting to become like what I look for rookies because I'd say in general you'd want to play a reasonable amount between at minimum 4 at up to 8 Searchers.
I am such a huge fan of consistency.
Yeah.
I love Searcher rookies.
Yeah.
And ever since we got the trainings, I feel so much less reliant on them to the point where I don't ever want to play them anymore.
Well, they might be it might be intentional with that because they're they're creating these new SR rookies and giving them like not searching effects, obviously. So they might be trying to incorporate better searchers, better consistency staples because we're running less rookies that search. The searcher rookies have always been like a priority in deck building, like you said, like that's recently changed. So it's actually taken like a staple out of deck building in a way.
For a card to be a staple, does it have to be generic?
I think it needs to be.
No, I'll come out swinging. Calling from the darkness.
That's generic.
That's not generic. It's purple. It's purple specific. Oh, you're saying like non-tribal.
Yeah.
Right.
I thought you were saying like trainings. There's trainings for every color. X antibody works for any color. You're just saying that like Does it have to be a non-tribal staple?
Yeah.
It's difficult. At that point, there's only so many different Gallantmon decks. So the fact that Black Growlmon is going to be in 100% of them, yes, it's technically a staple of that subcategory, but I don't think there's a big enough population of decks to analyze in a significant way.
Well, I think if there was more variability between what an archetype can be, so like I think because I played a lot of goblins, right? You have in Magic, the goblins have like different packages that they can play.
This is why you're the red player.
You just love turning sideways.
Well, goblins I thought was really interesting because like I immediately dismissed them as like a dumb fuck off aggro deck. Like I just play a bunch of guys and.
But then they printed a goblin that had big muscles.
Well, no, they've printed a lot of goblins that just like deal damage in interesting ways and like it's more of a resource focused grind deck from when I actually played it. Like it's a lot of long-term stuff. You're not often trying to just push damage in as fast as possible.
No, a lot of the best goblins have some kind of special ability to like either sack a goblin to do a certain effect, or when a goblin dies, a different effect will trigger. It's like there's or like goblins like more ETB enter the battlefield effects.
But it's not like you're playing like if you decide to play a pile driver focused goblin deck, it's just like a more aggressive goblin deck, but it's still using a lot of the like goblin archetype specific staples like Matron, which is just a searcher.
That's such a privilege though of Magic having such a library of cards to enable that. I think that like again, like Gallantmon has existed in many sets of Digimon and in different colors, different ideas. There's the Chaos Gallantmon packages, the Megidramon packages, the traditional Gallantmon packages, and you know they obviously work with each other to different extents. But at the same time, right now, if I'm saying I'm going to build a Gallantmon deck, I don't actually have that much variation.
I can guess probably about 70% of the cards you're going to include, and I'm going to assume most of them are Guilmon, Growlmon, War Growlmon, or Gallantmon in name.
Yeah,
for the most part.
So yeah, I to get back to the original question, I mean, I think that Black Growlmon, in my opinion, is the single best Gallantmon card to have been printed. Another consistency piece for our listeners, allows you to trash 2 cards from the top of both players' decks, then choose a tribal card out of trash and add it to hand, and then on deletion, grab another tribal card out of trash and fit it in hand, which is just very powerful.
Yeah, it's very good.
So
but
it is staple.
It is a tribal staple, but there's not much variation between what Gallantmon would be playing otherwise, or not playing that card doesn't pivot Gallantmon into a different strategy. It's the same strategy, just with or without that good card.
You have some thoughts, Noah. I can see the gears turning. There's a little rat in a hamster wheel just running.
I feel real confused about what a staple is now.
That's okay. Let's hash it out.
So,
Noah, I just had a big talk about this and begged you because it's brand new table. Literally, I've owned it for 2 days. We'll be right back. Our quick commercial break while Noah cleans my brand new table. Thankfully, didn't spill it on my brand new couch. I'm praying that while you guys are here, you don't have to shit, because I used the last sheet of toilet paper, and I've been worried that one of you would go to the washroom and be unable to use it.
Wait, the last sheet of toilet paper?
Down to the bone.
You don't have any toilet paper?
I said we're out. And then I said, do I have time to go? I said, do I have time to leave before you get here?
What are we supposed to do?
I said, do I have time to leave before you get here? And then the doorbell rang.
Oh my God. I have to pee so bad.
Well, you don't wipe when you pee.
You don't wipe when you pee?
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Are you actually being 100% genuine?
Why shake it off? There might still be some left over. Why don't you just
stay a little bit longer?
Why not? Why don't I just expedite the process?
Because it's in the pipes. It's not like if it was all sitting at the edge. If it's like a single drop, then I could get behind you. But the reality is like the leftover is like in the pipes.
We can have this conversation. I hope you know I'm still gonna wipe my dick. I hope you know this.
Go for it. It's just so like interesting to hear.
Yeah, I've never heard of this.
I do not want any amount of pee.
But do you understand that it's abnormal? Like it's okay. I actually don't think it's wrong at all. But like
it's fine for it to be abnormal. I actually didn't know it was abnormal.
What do you do at urinals?
Well, that's where you have to break out the Neanderthal maneuver.
I thought you were gonna say you have a napkin with you. do you have a reusable handkerchief
No,
that you wipe your
society,
pee with?
society frowns upon my method of wiping the tip of my penis after having a pee, and when I'm standing. Society says you have to sit down for that privilege.
The first time you went to a urinal, you didn't think, there's no toilet paper here. Did someone teach you to wipe it, or was it like
I don't fucking remember how I was potty trained. What the fuck?
Do you know if your dad or brother wipe?
No.
Could you ask for the podcast?
No, I'm not gonna ask them. This is not going on the podcast.
Oh, I'm keeping this.
You are not putting my foreskin, me talking about cleaning my foreskin on the Errata Sound podcast. I will actually lose it.
Well, we're on the
You would lose it. Hold on, actually,
I wouldn't lose it.
you'd be actively
but
upset to talk about.
Why do you want to include that? This is lore that you think is real.
It's a staple. Toilet paper is a staple for your bathroom experience.
It's so good that no girls play Digimon because we don't have to worry about them listening to this podcast.
What's okay? They wipe, so it's fine. It's relatable to them.
Okay.
So Noah spilled a bunch of coffee all over my condo. So
Let's be honest here. It wasn't a bunch of coffee. It was maybe 1.5 ounces.
1.5 ounces of aromatic McCafe.
I really like the smell, actually.
Okay, the reason it happened was I was being very mindful. But then I had to listen to Jeremiah talk about Yu-Gi-Oh! For 20 minutes straight,
He was going in there.
and my brain was dead. What were we talking about?
We're talking about whether staples are actually good or not, because like we know that they exist in different games and in different styles, and then we got into the idea of are they good, and then we got into the idea of what is a staple, because we talked about Black Growlmon and
Because
Gallantmon.
is Shoutmon a staple for crossheart decks? For crossheart decks, yes, but then it becomes what makes it a staple?
I think what makes it a staple is when it exists across a very wide population of decks. Like, it's almost like how Julian talked about Pokemon. It's about its usage percentage.
Yep.
If a card is OU, then it's probably a staple.
Black Growlmon is a staple for Gallantmon. Would you call it a staple ever? Because
Probably
there's
not. No.
It's not varied enough.
It's not varied enough. Yeah, I think it's the wide applicable use of a card that makes it a staple, whether it's a good staple or a bad staple. And that's probably part of why I don't like the cards that say X antibody in it. Because there's X antibody and then X antibody protoform. Is that the other one?
Yeah.
And both of them, I just look at them and go, I don't want to see this in every deck.
There's staples for X antibody decks, but like there are X antibody decks that might not opt to run X antibody.
Yes, but there was a period of time where X antibody decks were defining the majority of decks that we were seeing.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that like the fact that that card was so overused during that meta, first of all, talks about the card's power level. It's
very good.
It's
It gives
very
everything
good.
blitz.
But on top of that, it's like, players being tired of that effect being so applicable in so many eras of so many formats of the game. Like, you're just going to be seeing X antibody be running almost X antibody deck now, and every deck is going to have access to like be able to go into an X antibody off of a lower level swing.
When I think about staples,
Mm-hmm.
I define it I separate them by colors to begin with.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then I think about how many different decks of that color it can be running. So a good example
let's name a few staples.
would be a lot of the cards on the limited list, like HPD and Calling from Darkness and
Scatter mode.
and Ice
Scatter
Wall.
Mode, Gabumon, Ice Wall. A lot of purple cards, because a lot of purple cards
A lot of yellow
are
too.
generically good. But the difference is that while Jet would be put into every hybrid deck, it's not a yellow staple.
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree. Now, that is also an interesting concept as well, where you have staple engines. That can be a thing. Like, it's just a set of staple cards that, like, it's just a good package.
Yeah,
to
so
put
the
in a lot of stuff.
Eismon package was definitely intended to be. I mean, they built it with the mindset that it would be staples, and they said that staple engine is too good, so they hit it once, and then they said, you know what? Even the standalone cards are too good, so they hit every piece of the engine, which is 2-card combo.
Yeah, and like a staple package like that, I think that's where staples start to become a little bit more problematic.
So like the Garurumon cards, they were providing too much draw power for too many decks at
It's
a low
just
level.
it's like too many decks are going to be utilizing a significant amount of cards. It's one thing for you to have like your staple cards in that You have your training cards. You have your memory boosts. Those are fine. There's like 8 cards that you could be playing. You're probably not playing a full grip of memory boost and trainings anyways. But for the decks that want to do that, it's only 8 cards that are really going to be the same between a lot of decks. But then when you start printing packages like the Garurumon stuff or the Eismon stuff, then a bunch of purple decks are going to be seen with these, even though their top ends might be very different, but they're still going to be running a significant chunk. It's like if you were to think about it being like half your rookies or half your champions being dedicated to the same package in a lot of decks, I'd say that's where it starts to become a little bit boring.
I mean, I've said this a little bit earlier today, but I'm really crystallizing into the opinion. I think that it is a balancing act of flattening power levels, but also reducing deck versatility. The more that we're focusing on staples, the more decks are going to have access to similar, engines and draw pieces, but the more and more of a deck that is going to be identical between me and another purple deck. I don't know. I don't know if that's bad though. Like I do think that like it is a balancing act and it is hard, but I think it's hard when people also come into the game and they go, okay, so what 100 cards should I buy to give me a starting pack for Digimon? And if the answer is grab a bunch of cards from the last 2 sets or 3 sets, then it's like, okay, so we don't have a lot of history or like backlog cards to build bones. We just have play what's new and what's powerful.
Well, I know that Julian's mentioned before, like going through in Magic, and because it's an Eternal format, like picking Commander's an Eternal format, picks up a card. I forget the name of the card that he mentioned, but he's like, oh, this is a very cool card that is old that I want to use. And like that being a part of like the new player experience can be very cool. It's hard because Digimon's only about 4 years old. But the fact that, Mimi's still being run as like one of the best green decks. It's also, as one of the best green tamers in most green decks. And it's a card from BT1. And there's no other card in the game that really does what Mimi does exactly. There's cards that like try to emulate, okay, you get an extra like raising phase.
I think we've just now introduced another card that enables you to force a second rookie at a raising, which is the Louis Tamer.
Yeah, and like that being, Mimi as a part of green, I think is a great example of like a cool staple that's going to be probably looked at for a very, very long time in the game's history for that specific color. But I don't think that like outside of the limited cards, like I don't think Mimi should be one of the cards that's limited, but I feel like a lot of the limited cards are like older cards.
I think they are trying. I think the ban list has been a conscious effort to reduce the presence and prevalence of staples in our game. But yeah, I mean, we're not going to get rid of every staple because at the end of the day, there are going to be certain cards that are released that are going to be above the power curve. And therefore, if they can fit into your deck, they're probably a good choice to grab. Calling from the Darkness is obviously a staple that was hit. Mervamon's a very powerful card that if it can fit into your deck, a lot of decks can look back at it. And Mervamon looks at it. We saw it with Crossheart. We saw it with Anubis. So it's like, it's finding life in different decks because it as on its own is just a good card.
You know what's better than Mervamon?
What's that?
Ignitemon.
Ignitemon cooks so hard. I fucking love Ignitemon.
Because Ignitemon found his way into a lot of purple decks.
A lot, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, dude, how many purple decks are saying, hey, you know what I'm going to do? Play a Digimon by effect. Okay, there's a good inheritable. You know how many purple decks like to say, can I kill one of my own Digimon? Every single one of them.
Well, and I was gonna say, like, we're kind of dancing around big elephant in the room.
Mammothmon?
Well, yes, but no.
Skull Mammothmon.
I've actually been looking at Skull Mammothmon. I actually really like it as a card.
The starter deck one?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that like having multiple turns of the ability of create a level 4 Digimon is it's just a good ability to have.
Have you heard of Anubismon?
I do like Anubismon.
But we've been dancing around Death Exmon. which
Oh,
is
yeah.
the secret rare staple
We
from
were-
BT9.
When Death X first dropped, I mean, and for like a good period of time, we definitely said like every deck is going to be running a couple copies or like at least one copy of Death X.
Dude, during that period, there was a lot. That was when we went to Indiana too, so we had like a bigger.
There wasn't that much Death X at Indiana.
Not in Indiana. It was more afterwards.
We had a little bit more of a sampling size to see how impactful Death X actually was going to be at the time.
It was cool because maybe not cool. I don't know what it was, but Death X was introduced in BT9, which is a card that punishes wide boards,
And that was not BT9.
and that was not BT9.
It's like the worst time for the card to come out, and like we're looking at it as like this crazy thing, but it really
because
wasn't
on paper, like today, it still is like I look at it, I'm like, that's a really powerful card.
Yeah.
The issue is it's a powerful card with a condition, and having a condition means it can be played around.
But the thing that's interesting that I wanted to talk about Death X is rarity status. Secret
It
rare.
is a staple at the
Staples.
highest rarity that we have in the game, ignoring promo cards.
And that can be, I don't know how much Death X is sitting at right now. I remember picking mine up for about $60 Canadian.
Interesting that you call Death X a staple, because while I do think that he can go in any deck and he's very versatile and useful, I don't feel that I would tell people you need Death X to be able to play this game.
I feel like you need to have access to it for significant deck building choices.
He's an answer to a question that a lot of decks are able to ask. And I think that means that if you're trying to build a competitive deck, he's something that you always have to have in the back of your mind, regardless of what deck you're playing.
That is fair. I just think when I think of top meta decks over the past few metas, and I love Death X, I like to slot him in anywhere I can. A lot of these top meta decks don't have the space.
Yeah, but that's also because they'll often have other methods of dealing with wide boards effectively.
Right.
So it's like they're answering the question in their own way, so it's a redundant additional answer.
It's, I think, also in part becoming removal is becoming more and more widely available just through natural like gameplay. There's a lot of when digivolving, delete, bounce, etc. Whatever your removal method is, do it. But on top of that, we're also you can see Bandai trying to push the game in like a little bit more of a tribal direction, which makes me feel like Death X. It's like they don't want you to run Death X-Mon for your wide board removal in your, I don't know, name an archetype deck. They would rather you run the, sure, they would rather you in
Freeze
Blue
their
Flare
board.
just freeze the board and play it the way that you're supposed to in Blue Flare.
Yeah.
I talk out against a lot of hyper tribal mechanics, but at the same time, when Death X dropped, the first question I had was, why does this card not check trash for Dex? Because Dex Doragoromon does check the trash for, I think, 5 Dex cards in order to play Death X.
I actually think it's 6.
6? Okay, whatever. But then Dexmon does not check trash in order to trigger its on-play effect.
This is how I know the card is actually considered a staple, is because I forgot it was a part of an archetype.
A lot of people consider Death X to be a colorless card, even though it's purple black.
It functionally is.
It's better when you're playing it in a purple or black deck because you can digivolve
the very
but
niche scenarios where you digivolve it.
It's,
Or you can play it out from trash.
but like it's just nice to play the card. So yeah, it functionally could be considered as colorless.
Yeah, it's a tribal card that was just like given the ability to be run outside of its tribe. And because its tribe was bad, it's really the only card we remember from it.
Yeah, we don't care.
But what makes it a staple? The fact that it can be run in a lot of decks?
It's the fact that it's an effect that a lot of decks would probably consider or be running.
Mm-hmm.
It's not it's not a staple in that in every single deck to be like ran at 4 copies, but it's something that like every deck can and probably would consider at some point during the deck building and refining process.
To me, Death X, while a card that I think everyone should have, is not.
But does a
staple.
staple need... Okay, so like, as I said, Death X is a generic answer to a question that a lot of decks can ask. But in order for a card to be a staple, it doesn't necessarily mean it's an auto add, I guess.
No, I'm with you there. But for example, look at Eismon scatter mode.
Okay.
I don't think that's an auto add in all purple decks.
At this point, no. I think it's fallen off. It's actually funny that it got hit because I think it's kind of fallen off.
But do you think that you're more likely to include Eismon scatter mode in a purple deck?
Probably,
I'd
yeah.
say so.
And so that, to me, that's kind of the bars. How low it falls on the list of cards that you would include into.
So would you refer to like how I said decks before? Like I look at a lot of decks and I question how selfish they are, how much they need to run their own cards in order to function. You think that like the way you would say is a card a staple is in the most selfish deck that like doesn't have space for a bunch of additional cards, you'd still put it in.
It doesn't have to be that good, but for even decks that aren't that selfish, if you're not putting it in, then I really question how much of a staple it is.
Yeah, but just because it's a staple of varying playability does not mean it's not a staple. Like, think about the hate rookies.
But that's why I'm
like,
asking what a staple is.
I would prefer to have a more prepared answer for you.
It doesn't need to be a great answer, but I just mean like, is a staple a card that everyone should have? Because then I think, yeah, Death X is a staple. Is it a card that should be in a majority of decks? Then I don't think Death X is a staple.
I think it's nuanced for sure, but the way I consider a card a staple is like if its effect is worthy of consideration in a greater amount of decks that than like what I'm thinking of building. So if I'm thinking about like, okay, I want to build green hybrid. Does green hybrid want to use an agility training? Well, yeah, probably. And that's not even that useful in that deck. Let me think about, okay, what's another green deck that I want to play? Omega Gargomon. Would I want to play it in Mega Gargomon? Yeah, probably. So, like, the more I can start considering that, the more I turn to it immediately in deck building, the more I consider it a staple.
Right.
Right?
Which is fine for examples like trainings and HPD. It's almost every green deck you're going to include those. But how often do you say, where do I slot in Death X?
I think you know what I'm realizing? I would consider both staples, but I think there's a difference between cards that by default are in every deck or cards that are a default consideration. Because like Death X is a default consideration, but like I have to have a reason to not run trainings at this point. They're so effective at what they are. Death X is like, okay, well, it's more about what my opponents are running determines whether I want to run Death X in the current meta. BT9, we didn't actually have a lot of reason to run Death X.
Like Death X is a tech staple.
A tech staple. I'd be open to that, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like what I said earlier about Yu-Gi-Oh! That like you have Droll, which is like varying levels of good, and then you have Ash, which is just like you're going to be playing the Ash in like every deck.
Death X would be a staple in every sideboard.
Yes. Yeah. That's exactly it. I think that sideboards would open us up a lot more to the idea of staples because we actually had this talk a while back with I'll say acquaintance of the podcast, Mark.
I can't believe you name dropped him again, bro. He's pissed.
Because Mark was saying that he would put Psychmon in his sideboard, even in non-purple decks, just to have access to Psychmon's hate effect.
I've definitely considered playing just like Psychmon in security control, even though I'm running yellow rookies.
But you have Flame Hellscythe. That's the thing about purple rookies. They never truly go away.
They never truly go away. Yeah.
I mean, scrambles, soon that's going to be every rookie.
Yeah.
It's going to be everything except Psychmon because it's 3K.
And that's the thing is now we have scrambles too. That's another type of staple to consider. Every deck could run it, theoretically.
Yeah.
Any deck that's running a rookie, I guess, or 2K DP or less Digimon.
Yeah, no Megazoo.
When I go to deck build, and I'm building a specific color, let's say I'm building blue, I pull up every blue card.
You do?
I pull up every blue. I type in blue, and then I look at all the cards.
Bro brings up Submarimon when he's building any fucking deck.
I actually think that you're wilding because I'm so much in agreement with him. When I'm trying to build a purple deck, I start by opening up every purple card. Then I open up every purple black card. Then every purple yellow card. Then every purple red card. Then Kogamon.
All right.
Then Kogamon. No, but what I'm saying is when I deck build, every card's a consideration.
Yeah.
But you know what I did the other day? I said, what deck am I building? I said, bugs. So I typed in, I said bugs.
You didn't. You typed in insectoid.
Shut up. Shut up. Okay. No, but I just go like, again, we were getting tribal with this game, and if you're getting tribal, it's like, okay, what tribe am I playing? Oh, I'm playing Lotmon. All right, let me type in all my Lotmon cards, get all my Digivolutions for my Lotmon. Okay, now I have my frame of like what I'm playing.
Yeah.
So I looked at brought up all my Terriermons, was like, great, grab all the good ones. Okay, then I bring up my Rapidmons because obviously you got to play them. Name of the deck. Bring up all your Rapidmons. Oh, there's some that are worth playing. Look up all my ultimate Rapidmons. There's one that's worth playing. And then that breakdown of like my levels have been figured out. It's like, okay, if I have 2 playable Rapidmons as my ultimate spot, then great. I don't need to consider another ultimate because like this is within my tribe and it's already filling up all my slots. Like, do I want 4 copies of both? Sure. And if I can fit more in, that's a consideration I can make after. Oh, maybe I cut one. Maybe I play this ace card. Maybe I want to play a Lilymon Ace for some fucking reason, or a Hercules Caviteriumon Ace because I'm fucking sick because I love Blast Digivolution. But these are considerations you can make after you've already put those in. So,
but the thing is, again, those are cards that work for the archetype. When we're referring to a staple in that hypothetical deck you're building, we're referring to trainings and HPD. Those are what I would refer to as the primary green staples right now.
But then I'm thinking about stuff like I said, aces I consider in the same category as staples, or I consider the Terriermon.
I would put that in the same category as I put Death X, where it's like if I feel like my opponent is going to ask questions that these aces would answer, they'd go in. They're default considerations, but it's not like I would be like, oh, I'm building a green deck, I have to have 4 Mega Caviteriumon aces.
That's true. Yeah, and that's kind of what I think we do.
Part of what you're describing, to me at least, just sounds like the normal deck building process.
That is the deck building process for what I was saying.
It is finicky. I do think the word staple is funny because like what we're really trying to capture is just cards that are generically good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why I agree that Death X is a generically good card. Like 100%. If you guys are talking about if you wanted to make a list of cards, let me start over.
Okay.
If
welcome to the Arasana.
Yeah. If you came up to me and said, I want to play Digimon. I don't know what color I want to play. I don't have a favorite Digimon. I just know I want to play. Can you make me a list of good cards that I should pick up regardless of what color I'm playing? Then I would go through a list of cards that I think, so obviously some of them would be color locked, but there's still cards that you should pick up if you're ever going to consider playing one of those colors. So Death X would be on that list for sure.
Yeah, Death X would be on the list.
I think you remember this. We did do this as an exercise.
Yeah.
For when we were getting Julian into the game, I made a list with you of all of the yellow and green cards that I said these are generically good and interesting. Whether or not they'd make a meta deck, I think they're cool. So like a good example is the purple-yellow Ophanimon, which I think is a really cool card for yellow. And allows different things. It kind of allows you to sort of dip your toe into Mastimon direction. And I said, if you're going to build yellow, it's not an expensive card. Let's get you a couple copies of it. And you can just test it. Just try it out and try and deck build with it.
Bro, I mean, Kazuchimon for me, that was my staple card. Like, where the fuck can I put in Kazuchimon in any yellow
Kazuchimon was your truth, eh?
At the end of the day, sometimes you need to find a staple card. It doesn't matter how good it is.
That is straight up my favorite card. I was like, anytime I was like, you know what? Every single deck I play has security. And at some point I will go down to 0 security. What if I just went back up to 3? Is that ever bad?
But to get back into it, I do think that to me is the definition of staple. So that it's these cards that
you always consider.
Right. Just generic cards. They don't have to be generic, but they're cards that for the most part are generic because they're cards that with somebody with no knowledge of the game should be suggested these cards. Because when you go to deck build, these cards are considerations for sure. Every single time you build any color deck, I don't care what color it is, you'll consider a floodgate.
Yeah, I agree. And that's the thing is like I said, my deck building process is what deck am I playing? I'll go grab the majority of those cards that are going to be beneficial for that strategy, and then I'll start looking at consistency boosters, trainings, memory boosts, etc., tamers, and then I'm going to start looking at, can I play a hate rookie? Can I play Death X Mon? Can I play ace cards?
So it sounds like we're leaning in the direction of Staples good maybe.
Staples are 100% good.
Staples-
I'll stick by that in like
I mean,
every
it sounds
card
like
game.
it makes deck building nicer. It makes it more accessible to new players. It's definitely adding consistency to a lot of decks.
But I will say the accessibility is part of it.
Yeah, trainings are not an accessible staple.
They're hard to fucking get right now.
They're not that
and
hard.
Same with I
Go to
don't
a
have them
store.
right now.
Buy a box of BG14.
And then buy 3 more.
And then do it 4 times, and then you have your staples, and I guess whatever else you fucking pull.
Assuming you need to build at most 1 yellow deck.
No, but I mean, like Death X being an older card. So think about when we're in BT 25, and every deck is going wide as fuck and just putting 100 copies of a card on board, and you go, man, Death X would be good this format.
This is a PSA. Death
And
X
you
is
go-
being reprinted.
Oh, is that actually?
That's true.
Yeah.
I actually did forget about that.
In LM2, so find it randomly scattered throughout your BT17 box.
Does that mean that you would have gotten a secret, but instead you get the Death X reprint? I'll be so mad.
I don't know how they're gonna do it. I hope it's not like BT15.
I mean, the fact it's being reprinted is great, but again, this is an old fucking card. It's a secret rare, hard to get. You tell someone they need it, how the fuck are they gonna get it? It happens in every card game. We looked at Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring and Yu-Gi-Oh! That card is fucking. It was for $20 for like 5 years.
It's so hard to convince Bandai. Say, hey, what we really want to say is Bandai. Whatever your best cards are, please make them at highest rarity rare. Like that would be my ideal. Like make sure it's so easy for me to get access to these.
Dude, I remember joining this game back in BT8, and when Magna Angemon was going for like $50 a copy from BT1.
And we're right back there now with Magna Angemon Ace.
Bro, and I was like, yo, hit me up. I want to play security control. What's my price tag looking like? And like, yeah, it'd be $200. I'm like,
With
what
the Magna
fuck is going
Angemons.
on? And then, yeah, exactly.
And then you need your staples.
And then the Magna, and then you need the rest of the deck. That's just the staples.
Yeah.
And then you turn around nowadays and you say, Magna Angemon, I need it for SecCon. What the fuck are we talking price wise, brother? And they say $4. I give it to you for $4.
But this falls back under our accessibility episode, where buying singles can be very difficult.
Yeah.
And that's just the reality of it. So, sure, it's upsetting that you have to drop all that money on a box of BT14 for trainings. But at the very least, if you wanted trainings today, you could get them so easily.
You fucking bastard. Don't you lie to me.
You could get them so easily.
You could pay the price to get them. The reality is that other people are like me. I have 8 purple trainings, wisdom trainings.
How many did you eat?
But even though I own 8 of them, it's like, well, a lot of people are like, I want to build 4 green decks, so they're gonna get 16 agility trainings.
It's me. I'm people.
You just abandoned yellow, eh?
Green's so fucking sick, dude. I love green
Green's
so
good.
much.
Insects are very cool.
Between insects and Goromon, Deerbitmon, Shivamon. Oh, I fucking love
I don't
them.
know if it's because it's a little bit late, but I'm still cracking up at the fact that Ian said he ate wisdom trainings.
Bro. That's why he's so smart.
Why did I say that?
I don't know.
He's so smart.
No, you said you have 8.
Oh,
I have 8 wisdom trainings.
That's what you were asking. I was so confused.
Yeah, I've always been a fan of staples, but the price of staples has always been something that's
So for you, it's mostly coming back to accessibility, which is
price is frustrating. I mean, I remember back in the day getting into Vanguard and you needed 4 perfect guards and they were double rares and they were $20 a copy. And me as a new player was like, great, I'll just fucking die.
Earlier, I read out a title of a post about a World of Warcraft first record, whatever, on some hardcore server. And to Jeremiah, it was complete gibberish. And I knew it was gibberish as I was reading it to him, but it made no sense to him. And what he just said about double rare perfect guards 2 stars, that was his payback to me.
It was like an SR card that literally said like, hey, you can stop an attack.
Oh, absolutely.
And it was enough. Yeah, it was. No, that's exactly what it was. Is every deck had their own absolute ice shield. So it wasn't like you bought one playset of absolute ice shield from Battle Spirit Saga, name drop, and then you were good. It's like you had to do it for each deck. Can I tell you?
No.
I'm interested in Dragon Ball Fusion
Fusion
World
Fighters?
Fusion.
Is that
What's the new one? The new card game. They're getting like a rebrand.
the
a
DCGO?
facelift.
Is it like a reboot of the
It's
Dragon Ball
Dragon
Super
Ball
card game?
Super card game, but like yeah, they're keeping some of the mechanics, but they're like they're doing enough different that they're making it a new.
So they're
game
making
for
a
some reason.
Battle Spirit Saga within the same language.
Yeah, in the same language, and it's like a standard format, like it's its own self.
I mean, let's be honest. It's the death throes of a dying game. Like I think that what? No, there's
Call
no.
them out. They had their own fucking room at Nats, idiot.
Digimon might be on the chopping block. I think that we have to have an understanding that cards go through life cycles, and at the end of the day, when a card game is dying or has lost a large subset of its community, they'll try and release new content in a desperate ploy to get players back. And it doesn't mean the card game's alive. It means that it's worth putting a little extra money in for the rare possibility that it brings life back, rather than just putting no extra money in and then any leftover product is wasted anyways.
I'm sad now.
Why?
You just described the death of Buddy Fights.
Or Vanguard.
When a card game starts to die, buy as many of the most expensive cards as you can. Okay? Because that's the lowest point it'll be, and then you can sell it when it gets high again.
Yeah, because every card game comes back.
Can I tell you guys about the reckoning of V format?
No, what's this? Is V for Vanguard?
So it's
Is
a
V
Vanguard thing. So again, it's like this Dragon Ball Fusion Dimension thing, but they kept it within the same game.
Yeah.
When the new standard format was announced for Vanguard, all of the prices of everything before plummeted. It just like fucking dipped to shit. I was building decks for like $40 maybe for like literally everything, which is hilarious because like that's the average price of like a Digimon deck.
Yeah. Even though I keep flexing about how cheap Digimon is.
Actually, no, fuck it. Agility training price too high. I won't pay it. $6 per copy. I won't pay it.
What privilege, dude. Julian, our one listener, is gonna listen back to this podcast, and then he's gonna be like, "Fucking Digimon players are complaining about $6 staples in their game."
I'm joking. I would definitely buy the agility trainings. It's just no one has them for $6.
To buy a box, that's still cheaper than Magic singles.
Damn, you're right. That's the sad truth. It just decks dropped like crazy during the V series thing, and it was just a crazy thing to see like a game self cannibalize itself like Vanguard, and it's still going. They did it a second time, and it's still going. I'm like, that's kind of amazing, but also it's terrible. That's not good. I hope Digimon never sees that. But with the Dragon Ball Super thing, I'm interested in the newer card game because it's gonna have an online simulator.
Yeah, we've talked about this before. In the Discord I talked about it especially, but I'm not more interested in a game because it has an online simulator. I'm happy for the people that will use it, but I'm not really ever going to be more interested in a game because I can play it on my phone versus with my cards.
Well, I like it because it's more than just like the tutorial app that Digimon has. Because like the tutorial app, you can play it for a long time. I've played my fair share of the tutorial app, even knowing the rules. I'll admit it.
Yeah.
But the tutorial app is a way to show someone the game and them be like kind of confused, but be like, oh, this is like once you start getting the hang of it, then it's like over. And then you have to just replay the battles that you did before. Like it only has so much staying
You
power.
very much
Whereas
like the gamification, the drip feed of digital card games, like slowly building a collection through play.
It's fun. Like it's a lot of fun to do that, but I think just the truth is like the fact that Dragon Ball Super is going to have that more than just the tutorial app is going to be at least someone being like, there's going to be at least one person, I want to say, that is going to get into the game through that and just like only play
For
that.
sure.
And like not touch the physical card game, but just play the digital one. And like for that to just be something that can happen is interesting because then there's the paper version going on in the same space, right? You can go and play the paper version too. But I think if Digimon were to have something like that, I think that would be great. Like if you told me that was happening for Digimon, I'd be like,
I mean,
that's
we
fucking
talked about
sick.
this a little bit when we talked about proxies with Julian, but at the end of the day, if it was not for the existence of official tournaments, there would be no real reason to go out and buy the cards.
Yeah.
And I think that's the threat of simulators, and that's the fear that Bandai has, that like if any kind of format that is not, their sanctioned events becomes the popular way to play, there becomes almost no reason to like financially support the company.
Do you think there are more players than collectors?
More players than collectors? God, I'd hope so. I fucking hate collectors.
I think so for Digimon for sure. But Magic also probably, but like there's a lot of
think about
Magic
Pokemon.
collectors.
Hands down, there's way more collectors than players.
Sure.
So once you start getting into that headspace, if you think about Digimon that way,
Digimon definitely has a lot of like emotional overlap with Pokemon. So yeah, I get where you're going.
then do you really think that all purchases would be stopped?
No, but they would go down, and at the end of the day, like Bandai is producing Digimon cards because people are buying Digimon cards. If we were buying it at a much lower rate, then they would stop producing it.
I mean, Bandai's also got 4 going now. 5. We're on the
6.
chopping block.
Yeah, we got Dragon Ball. We got 2 Dragon Balls.
There's no way we're going before Dragon Ball.
Yeah, but they have the new
We have
Fusion
Battle Spirit
Dimension,
Saga, Digimon, Union Arena,
dude. Yeah.
One Piece.
Battle Spirits is 100% the first to go though, right? Like I'm a fan of Battle Spirits and I can 100% say that.
I mean, how much of an exaggeration was it when you said there were like 12 people for
There
Battle
were
Spirits?
only 12 people in line.
That's rough.
That wasn't the entire line, but that there were 12 people at that time in line.
Anytime you see that where it's like a local attendance at like one of the highest levels of play, it's like you're cooked.
I'm guessing there was at least 100 people.
But that's for a
And-
national event, dude. That's not good.
I'm going through right now because you guys know that I play Project M as my main Smash game, and Project M is in an awkward spot where a different game, HDR Hue Draw Remix, is a ultimate mod that is currently getting more attendance and popularity than Project M. It is now kind of overtaken Project M as the most popular Smash mod, at least right now. I mean, Project M has more staying power in history, but it's kind of awkward because I'm going through that sequence with Smash likes where I'm like, fuck, is the game that I've invested myself in fallen out of relevance? And is the choice to either switch over to this new game that's popular, or to just like leave this part of my life behind, or to hang on through the death throes and be like, I'm a Project M ride or dyer.
Bro, that's exactly me with Vanguard.
Yeah.
You just described like my thought process from like going. I just talked about it. I think last episode is when I was like getting into Digimon, and I was like, I guess this is kind of close to Vanguard, right? Like I can live vicariously through this, and then I just really liked Digimon anyways. And then, but I'm still like holding on. I'm still looking.
It's
at
hard to
Vanguard.
be like one of the last holdouts because like you always feel like, man, it would be great if it came back, but I don't think you can. You can't force a game to become popular again after its heyday.
Dude, and also like think about the landscape right now. It feels like there's so many games on the market. And like I don't have history. Like I don't know all the history to like what the landscape looked back in the 2000s, cuz when Magic and Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh happened, like you already know everything was getting a fucking card game. So there was a lot of card games back in the day, but it feels like right now there's a lot that are like legitimate contenders in the market on top of like what's already existing. Like Pokemon is not ever leaving, right? Pokemon is
The IP that is Pokemon, like Nintendo will keep its heart beating through anything. And then, well, the card game is just a piece of it. It's one piece of a multimedia empire that at the end of the day, Pokemon should outlive all of us.
yes. I mean, yeah, Pokemon, and like I don't really think Magic is going to go anywhere. I know a lot of players have been like talking about how Wizards just like running out of ideas.
I mean, are they releasing an Assassin's Creed set? I was going to show it to
Ian?
Julia.
I don't know what
What
fuck
year
they're
were you
doing
born?
anymore.
96.
One's already outliving us.
Sure, I guess.
Dang.
Sure, get him. But yeah, so like you have those guys are huge. They'll probably stick around forever. Yu-Gi-Oh's fucking weird because it's like it's got players, but like none of them are happy playing the game. You know what I mean? So and the game is reaching like a super high level of power creep and has never shown any interest in like doing a standard rotation. So we don't know what the fuck's going to go on with Yu-Gi-Oh. It's either going to keep going with like whatever the fuck it has, or it's going to break down and just die. We'll see what happens.
I gotta say, the way people talk about Yu-Gi-Oh feels very similar to the way people talk about League of Legends,
It's the same idea,
which
yeah.
is just like
You know it's not
I
good.
should have died a long time ago.
you're like it's like the players are addicted to it, but they hate themselves.
No,
and they hate
I
the
actually,
game.
you know what it is more than anything? It's exactly what I said. It's Riot is going to keep I was gonna say Project L is gonna keep League of Legends' heart beating long past its relevance. They're like, oh, people aren't playing League, let's make Arcane. Oh, what are the kids playing? Fighting it? Let's release Project L. Like, oh, you kids like K-pop? Here's KDA. It's like, dude, just let it
What's
die.
KDA?
So it's their K-pop band made up of League of Legends girls.
That's sick.
With like actual K-pop artists. Yeah, they actually have like some
Wait,
great
they're
songs.
actual K-pop artists and not the League characters.
So it's like it's VTubers. It's VTubers. They use real artists and they put it on anime character models.
Oh.
It is VTubers, dude. What do you mean?
Are Digimon VTubers?
No, but like what we're describing is like specifically like it's taking a real artist and then putting it on an anime character and then advertising the anime character as if that is like the brand identity.
Isn't that Digimon Seekers?
I actually don't know. I have no concept.
They were playing that trailer over and over again at
The
nationals.
Seekers trailer.
Guys, I have something that I thought about today.
Okay.
That I didn't share with you. I don't think I did. Maybe I did.
It's so rare because I was gonna say for spoilers for the audience, I feel like a lot of the things that we say, you guys have heard me say before, but I'm like, you know what? It's so funny. I'll say it again, and they'll laugh again. So it's a rare thing that you're bringing a true first time experience.
It's not anything too special, but at nationals, during day 2, if you wanted to go to the washroom, you needed an escort.
Did you actually?
Yeah.
Oh, in case you were cheating.
I wasn't allowed to go to the bathroom alone. I didn't even have my deck. As soon as you finished your game, your deck was taken away from you.
Yeah.
In between
The
rounds.
judge just swipes that shit. Give me that. Give me that fucking deck.
And so we were confined to this small area where all the players were supposed to be. And I was like, I need to go to the washroom. They said, okay, let me go get you someone to take you.
No way.
And they
Why
walked me to the
is it
washroom.
treated so strictly like that? That's
And then they wiped my penis for me. No, it was very strict, and it was funny because I originally at the start of the day when they were doing deck checks, I walked up to a judge and said, "Can I go to the bathroom, please?" And they said, "Yeah." So I left and went to the bathroom. I'm like, "Okay, cool. Like, I'm allowed to go to the bathroom." And then the next time I was like, "Can I go to the bathroom, please?" They said, "Let me find you an escort."
dude. Once was enough. You passed the quota. All right, I think we've probably moved on from our Staples dialogue, and I think it might be time for. Well, there was once upon a time we were. I think where we landed was Staples are good.
Staples are good.
What Staples are is a little bit up to interpretation.
It's really cool to see something like Aces, which I consider a staple, getting to the point where you have to start considering them more often. The fact that they are staples is going to start mattering more.
You know what?
Cool.
In an encapsulating way, I 100% agree. The idea that staples are something that brings more choice to deck building is something I enjoy. And I think that more staples, a wider variety of staples, can help make it so I don't just go, let me put all my tribal cards in and then there's my full deck. It can make me go, shit, do I want one more tribal card or do I want this, utility card that might be a green staple?
Can we get an editor to edit in
That was easy.
after every time we say staples, please?
I'll put one in.
Please and thank you.
I'll put
Because I
one
heard
in.
I heard the word staple/staples about 20 times in the last 5 minutes. So
For right now, thank you for listening. to the Raw Snaw podcast, and I think Jeremiah is in charge of our sign off today. Our quick deck check of what our new sign off will be.
Thank you for listening. You can find us on X at arata.sonata.
You'll
podcast.
see in
we
the
don't
description.
currently have that URL.
You can find us on Facebook, the
I'm
Arata
not
Sonata
making a Facebook
podcast.
account, I'll tell you right now.
You can find us on Yahoo Mail at arata.sonata99 at
We are currently looking for a new
ymail.ca.
editor, so if you look us up on LinkedIn,
You can find me on Neopets.
Yeah, I was really into Neopets. Neopets is really interesting because like it's one of those things that is, but what it really was at the end of the day was a finance simulator, and that
that was my favorite part of WoW.
yeah, a lot of people stayed attached with with Neopets largely just to be like, hey, how can we optimize the financial markets within Neopets? And like I follow a few YouTubers that like really like consistently keep up with like how to maximize profit margins within modern Neopets.
I was trying to get Ian into WoW because I was a huge fan of the auction house, and it was just a financial simulator to me. And I had spreadsheets and charts tracking my my gold growth and stuff. Like, this is fun to me.
I do get that. I think that that's a very cool thing to be engaged with.
Well, that's why. So while
is
you were
cool.
out of the room, we were watching this fireside chat for Project Loki, and she said, "Discovery is fun, documentation is not." And I said, "That's rude."
That's false. That's objectively false. I actually don't understand why developers actively hate having patch notes. Why do they think that I don't want to know how the game was changed? Give me the nitty gritties. Like, if you want to tell me like there's a 0.05% change to the length of an animation, I'm like, then just tell me. Let me know that. Anyways,
Bye, guys.
do your Poggy Woggy exit
Our
line.
exit line. Thank you for listening to the Arata Sonata podcast. I hope you enjoyed what we talked about today.
Please leave a message for us in the comment section or in the Q&A. Ask us a question. I would love to answer a question from someone.
Yeah, I think
Tell us what your favorite staple cards are from any card game. I don't give a fuck. I'll look it up.
and give us your favorite experience at Staples.
No, don't. You don't have to. Don't do that last one. But definitely
I
tell me
like
what
their
your favorite.
I
staple
like
card
their
is.
print section. I think they make good prints.
And if you guys leave us a message that's fun, and
We can't
and
have
wait,
8 sign-offs.
we'll read it out in the next podcast, okay? So it doesn't matter what you say, we'll read it live. So
All
please
right.
leave a message for us.
All right, bye everyone.
Bye-bye.
No.
Bye-bye.
Night, guys.